The Movement #1, written by Gail Simone, art by Freddie Williams II. So, this is a book that apparently spun out of the Occupy Wall Street movement that was going on at the time. I don't really want to spoil more than that, but the first little panel here, first page, picks up in Coral City, Coral City, and some cops are shaking down some teenagers, and they find out one of the guys has drugs on him. And they say, "Oh, you're a dealer, huh?" And he's like, "No, I'm not. That was strictly my own personal use. I know dealers get heavier charges, but I wasn't dealing." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, we'll see about that." And he says, "All right, here's the thing. I'll let you go with a warning, but your little girlfriend here has to give us a peek of what she's got." And then all of a sudden, we hear that line being repeated as a recording over and over again as this figure steps out wearing a silver mask, holding up a phone that says the letters ICU. And the cops are like, "Oh, okay, a wise ass. Yeah, okay, we'll take him out." They draw their guns. They're about to fire. And then they see they're surrounded on all sides by people in these silver masks holding up their phones saying ICU, all playing this message, this like recording from the cops. And they're like, "Okay, maybe we should leave. All right, have a nice day." So they all leave. We see the police captain is at his desk. Cop comes in saying, "Sir, you're going to want to see this. Your cops are on the news." And we see that the recordings have made their way to the news of how the cop was basically sexually extorting a underage girl to show herself. And immediately this captain just is like, "Turn off the TV. I'm going to go kick their asses." And he makes his way out in the bullpen, and he's like, "Both of you, you are out of here. You're on administrative leave. We're going to have a full investigation, and you are going to be fired." And they're just like, "Actually, you can't. You can't do that. We've already talked to our union rep, and we get to have an arbitration or something like that." And the captain's like, "Oh my God, I'm going to make your lives hell." So then they get a call that the cornea killer has stricken again. And the captain seems very interested in that. Cut to a church where there's this young blonde kid standing outside as who seems to be the priest comes in. And he's like, "Oh, son, do you need a place to stay? Like, you seem hungry and it's going to be freezing tonight. We can take you in." And he's like, "Oh, I shouldn't go into church. Bad things happen when I go into church." And he's like, "Oh, don't worry about it. We can still take you in. By the way, do you have a name?" And he's like, "Burden. My parents always called me a burden." So then we cut back over to the captain. They arrive at a homicide scene where this guy's been killed. There is a puddle of water beneath him for some reason, and also his eyes are gouged out, kind of the big thing. The cops that he was telling to leave before have arrived, and the captain wants them gone, and one of the officers is like, "Oh, God, they're good cops, Captain." He's like, "Oh, wow, that's a stupid opinion." So it's worth noting that a bunch of rats are apparently eating the corpse. Like, this place is so that much of a bad place. Cut back to the church, and all of a sudden, as he enters into the church, this burden guy, his neck does a full 360. He like says like, "Oh, I'm gonna worry. You should be worried about your own safety, holy man. I'm gonna." Basically, he's demonic and he's here to kill him. So the cops get the call that the slasher is at the church, and they're all like, "This must be our guy. We got to go now. Let's go catch him." So then we see a couple of shadowy figures who are like, "Hey, a big one's coming your way. Is everyone on tail?" And there's like a guy named Catharsis, and there's one named Tremor. And they're like, "Yep, we're all ready. We're all at our places." So cops arrive at the church. They kick down the door. There's this burden is just floating in the air, and he's like, "Hello, officers. Hell says hi." And we see that a rat is crawling up one of the officer's legs, and it has a note on it, and the note says "War." And then all of a sudden, this dude springs out of the ground, controlling an army of rats, and he's like, "Hello, everyone. My name is Mouse, and I am the Prince of Rats." And then all of a sudden, Burden, like, he snaps out of it, and he's like, "Oh, you gotta help me, father. The devil won't let me go." And then we see Tremor is standing outside, and she is just like, "Hey, all these cops have their guns aimed at me. I'm just going to go ahead and take care of them." The cops are going to be like, "Okay, well, we've got guns." And he's like, "It's not going to help you." So then she touches the ground, and this huge just earthquake happens, and all their cars fall into a crevice. And she's just like, "All right, I'm out." And she walks away. Prince of Rat manages to take his rat army and get everyone out of the church, or at least all the cops out of there. And the captain's like, Jesus Christ, we're going to need backup and all the exterminators the city has. And then this woman pops up behind the captain and says, I see you, Captain. You're trespassing. And we'll get back to her. The bad cop, the one who was sexually soliciting, gets flagged down by this woman, I believe named Catharsis, and she comes in wearing like metal wings, and she's like, here, you want to play with girls? How about you play with me? And so he charges at her, throws some punches. She throws back just as hard, and she wraps her legs around his head, chokes him out, and says, oh, citizens arrest cop. How does that feel? As he passes out on the ground. And then we go back to the girl who was talking to the captain, and it's like, here's the thing. We got rid of all your men. Anything between 10th Street and 20th Street, which is apparently the worst part of the town, is under the watch of this team of superhero teens called The Movement. They're the ones who recorded the stuff and sent it to the news channels. They're going to be an actually effective police force because they do not trust the cops here already. And the cop's like, all right, fine. What are you going to do? Kill me? And she's like, no, I'm not going to kill you. Not yet. And she touches his forehead and is able to ride some emotional waves back to his house. And when she's done touching his forehead, she's like, okay, so by the way, your wife is cheating on you. And he's like, you're lying. That's not, how would you even know that? And she's like, I just went to your house. It's one of your officers. Do you want to know their name? And he's like, no. Yes. He's like, oh, it's the other officer who was there with the sexually assaulting one. Like, he was the one who did it. So then she lays down the law again. It's like, again, you aren't allowed between 10th and 20th Street. This is our area. We're cleaning it up. Cops are not welcome. And he's like, there's a killer in that church. He's like, no, there isn't. That kid was not your cornea killer. That kid is just someone who was abused from the day he was born, and he has superpowers that make him like believe it. So we're going to take care of him. And that's the end of it. And the captain's like, screw that. Police are still law and order. I'm taking care of this now. And he runs back into the church. He tells the person at the altar, like, I need your phone. There's some crazy kids out there. I'm going to bulldoze this place and I'm going to martial law it or whatnot. And then the guy at the altar turns around. Turns out he's also part of the movement. He's got the silver mask, as does everyone in the congregation. And they're like, I see you, Captain. You're no longer welcome here. I have never seen a superhero comic from a major publisher that be so anti-cop. And I'm kind of digging it. I'm kind of digging how they're like, nah, man, you suck. I mean, I'm not, I mean, let's be honest here. I am pretty left-wing, all things considered. But like, I think this is really interesting from a book standpoint, not even by its politics, because it doesn't really have anything to do with like the rich or anything yet. It might get there, but this is solely a thing of like a group of vigilantes going all the way and saying, no, the system has failed to the point where we don't even want it interacting with our area. We want to completely remove it from our area. And they're the heroes. They are the like protagonists of the book instead of a fringe like vigilante or something like that the actual hero has to fight. I appreciate that. I really like that different perspective because it's not something you get. Like Batman's always worked with law enforcement. Superman's always worked with law enforcement. Half of them are working with like the CIA or Argus or whatever. I appreciate that there's one that's just like, no, we don't want you here. So I'm into it. Art style, I'm a little hit or miss on Freddie Williams. I think he was really good on Captain Atom, but whenever he's drawing like just normal people, it's hit or miss. I think this is more hit than miss, but it is still, it has its problem areas. So we'll see how it manages to stick out, but I'm down for this book. I'm really interested. So I'm going to give it I'll give it just a solid 8. I'm really liking it, and I want to see where it goes because it's an interesting premise at the very least.